Hi, Professor Holiday. Hi, Econ 101 class whoever's watching this. Today, I'm presenting my final project, and I chose option 2. I'm going to be looking at the macroeconomic side on how a government shutdown affects in the aviation industry, slowing down, shutting down, affects the broader economy as a whole, using macroeconomic principles gathered in class. So let's get started. So I have a flight tomorrow. Just imagining all these things, longer lines, maybe my flight back home getting canceled, and that may seem like a big issue for me, but it's a bigger issue. Those aviation problems, issues, shutdowns are negatively affecting the broader economy as a whole. So I'm going to be explaining to you how GDP works, problems with GDP, how it's calculated. I'm going to be seeing how aviation disruptions affect GDP and what policy I would use to bring us back to equilibrium, increase our GDP. So let's talk about what GDP is and what goes into it. So GDP, gross domestic product, is a combination of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports minus imports. So that's what counts. What doesn't count? Intermediate goods. GDP is a calculation of final goods only to keep us from counting goods twice. And then what else doesn't count? Financial transactions like stocks, bonds. The I part is misleading. Investment. No stocks or bonds in there. Confused me too at first. And what else? Transportation, Social Security checks, unemployment, disability checks. Those kind of things don't count. And used goods, because they were new once. They were counted in GDP a while ago. If it's a car from the 50s, sorry, does not count again. You'll be talking about nominal versus real GDP. Nominal GDP is kind of using current prices, and that doesn't adjust for inflation. If price level's gone up, but quantity remained the same, then is that really a good thing that GDP went up? So that's why we have real GDP, where we use current quantity versus old prices to make it kind of inflation-proof, see if we were really improving as an economy, not just in a inflationary expenditure gap. So, and then other drawbacks of GDP, doesn't measure income inequality, doesn't measure non-market activity or illegal, it doesn't measure the drug trade. Drug trade is not in this calculation. And then doesn't exactly capture quality of life. Our GDP might be going up, but so GDP per capita going up is other measures of basic life going up. So those are some drawbacks, but it is still the best indicator we have for economic growth. So how a shutdown affects GDP using the aviation example we were giving, the approach I want to take is see how it's going to affect each thing that goes into GDP individually. So consumption is a good one because people are going to spend less on flight. Guess what? People aren't buying flights now. People aren't getting to their destination. Let's say flights to Vegas are canceled. People aren't going to Vegas and doing what they do in Vegas. So tourism, hotels, flights. Of course, that's what you do in Vegas. And then investment. This is kind of a interesting one. Airlines, if the aviation industry shut down, they're not investing in new planes. They're not investing in new routes. They're not hiring new people. So that goes in investment. That's big. That's going to go down a lot. And then government spending. If the aviation industry shut down, guess what? They're not paying TSA agents. They're not paying FAA agents. They're not paying whoever checks your passports. I forget what bureau does that, but they're not paying that. So I think that's kind of the most direct effect. And then exports, I've kind of torn on that, but going to be thinking about in a sense is if the aviation industry shut down, big FedEx, UPS can't fly their planes abroad and can't export stuff. So I kind of thought in that sense, obviously we could still send it by not plane, but boat, stuff like that. But planes are a big part of exporting stuff, and we can't do that. And then looking at all that, now I want to talk about how if I were somehow in this position of power, would bring us back to equilibrium. So I would use a fiscal policy and a monetary policy that resembles that I'm going to be using expansionary. Yeah, that's what expansionary policy. Sorry, that's what we'll shut down. So my fiscal policy would be to increase government spending. It's just the easy way of increasing, bringing more money into the economy. And the main thing I would focus on, though, is monetary policy. And one thing I would do to bring us back to equilibrium would be to lower interest rates. Let's pump more money into the economy. Let's make borrowing easier. I think that's pretty straightforward. So those would be the two main concepts I would use that we learned in our macroeconomic class to bring us back to equilibrium. And then my ADAS framework, the shutdown would shift aggregate demand on the left. My policy response would shift it back to the right. In the short run, it's higher real GDP, higher employment, maybe a little increase in price level, but I don't think that should be too, which kind of comes with expansionary policy, but you gotta, can't always be good, I guess. So that's my graph right here, and I want to talk about why this matters so much is because we just came out of a big government shutdown. Congress shut down for I don't know how many days, and that affected the aviation industry a lot. I mean, I know my buddy's flight got canceled. People were saying don't fly. There was big panic, mass hysteria. So just being able to use concepts I learned in economics class to such a real world issue was really cool to me. And yeah, thank you so much.